everyone, welcome to this live stream session on studying a postgraduate degree in Fashion and Textiles at DMU. Thank you very much for joining us. If you're watching us live on Facebook or YouTube, please do leave us a comment to say hi. We'd love to hear from you. My name is Charlotte and I work in the student recruitment team in the Faculty of Art, Design and Humanities, and I'll be your host for today's session. I'm joined by two fabulous colleagues, Buddy and Graham, and two lovely students, Laura and Marco. So let's all go around and introduce ourselves. Over to you first, Buddy, if you can just introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name's Buddy Penfold. I'm Associate Professor in the School of Fashion and Textiles. So I teach across both those subject areas and my specialism is knitwear.
Thank you very much, Buddy. Over to you, Graham.
Hi everybody, my name's Graham Hudson. I'm an Associate Professor in Design Management. I'm also Associate Head of School of Fashion and Textiles, Programme Leader for the MA Design Management and Entrepreneurship, and also the Head of Postgraduate Programmes in the school.
Thank you, Graham. Over to you, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura and I'm currently studying Textile Design, Technology and Innovation.
Thanks, Laura. And then you, Marco.
Hi guys, my name is Marco. I study MA Design Management and Entrepreneurship at, funny enough, DMU.
Thank you very much, Marco. Thank you, everyone. So for the next hour, we'll be talking about our postgraduate courses in fashion and textiles and hearing from our students about their experiences. We'll also be answering your questions, so please do leave us a comment and we'll do our best to answer you. Now, first, we're going to have an overview of our courses from Graham and Buddy. And so over to you first, Graham.
Thanks, Charlotte. Okay, so postgraduate study in the School of Fashion and Textiles covers a number of specialist subjects. My colleague Buddy will talk to you in more detail about two of those in a minute, but I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we do in the School of Fashion and Textiles, because as I say, we have 7 different programs. There's an awful lot of different subjects that you can study, and I know Charlotte's going to talk about why you should do postgraduate study later on. So first of all, we, as I said earlier, we have a program, MA Design Management and Entrepreneurship, which I'm the program leader for. We also have an MA or MSc in Design Innovation. We have a MA in Digital Design. We have an MA in Fashion and Textiles. We have an MSc in Textile Design, Technology and Innovation. And we have an MA in Fashion Management and Marketing. And brand new this year, we have an MA in Contour Fashion Innovation. So you can see we have a broad range of different subjects that go from fashion and textiles through contour fashion, through to textile design and technology. We look at fashion management with marketing. And then we move on to design management and entrepreneurship, design innovation, and digital design. So all of those programs all have specialist areas that develop what we call continuing professional development, CPD. You'll often hear this acronym, that's what it stands for. And it's all about giving graduates, but also people in industry, a new skill set and upskilling to tackle management jobs, but also technology jobs, you know, looking at how you use design as a strategic business tool, that kind of thing. It's incredibly important in the current environment that we find ourselves that people are given the opportunity to do continuing professional development and upskill, particularly as we have a new situation that's developed in the last 3 months or so with COVID-19 and coronavirus, which has completely changed the way not just universities operate, but also the way schools and industry. If you talk about postgraduate education, when I did my MA, it was in 2005, so it was about 20 years after I did my original BA degree. I was very fortunate. I studied at university in Australia in Sydney, and then I did my MA at the University of Leicester, which is our partner university in Leicester, just up the road. So the way people do postgraduate study now has changed quite dramatically. We're finding a lot more students coming straight off their undergraduate programs, and I think Laura and Marco will talk to you about that in more detail later on. So the traditional way of doing the postgraduate degree has very much developed. So we find people coming in from industry who've had significant periods of working in industry, 10, 20 years, then doing an MA. We have students coming straight off undergraduate programs. We have a lot of students coming from different parts of the world. So the community that we have as postgraduate students is very wide, very diverse, a lot of different backgrounds. And all of our programs share modules across different programs. So although you may be studying MA Digital Design, for example, you may well be in a module with students from design management, fashion management. We also share modules with our colleagues in another school, so that you might find there's interior design students and product design students in there as well, which makes it a very nice cross-disciplinary, diverse community of different students studying different modules at different times. The other thing that we try to introduce into our postgraduate programs is the ability to choose electives. So you may well be a design practitioner looking at contour fashion, or a textile designer, but actually you have the ability to choose modules that enhance your CPD. So you might be able to do something on business planning, about using marketing. It might be about how you use technology for design. It might be a specialism looking at museum and exhibition design, design for retail. So we have a broad suite of elective modules that allow you to build that CPD profile up. We also try and make sure that we have live projects where we have companies and organizations coming in, setting briefs, for students to actually get involved in working with companies and clients in industry. Now, obviously, that's changed a lot in the last few months, and a lot of stuff we've had to do has been online. On my own program, we run a module called Service Design, and we've done a live project with Sainsbury's this year, and they came in and delivered the brief. Then coronavirus and COVID-19 kicked in, so the rest of the subsequent briefings had to be done online through our own virtual learning environment. We use a system called Blackboard, which has a part of Blackboard called Blackboard Collaborate, so we can do everything online. So we've had to change the way that we do things, but it's been quite an exciting experience, and I'm sure Marco and Laura can talk to you about that if you're interested in how it works. I think I've probably said enough at this point, so I'm going to hand back to Charlotte, and then I think she's going to invite Buddy to come in and talk about specifically about the 3 programs that she talked about.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much, Graham. Over to you, Buddy.
Hi, everybody. The 3 MA programs that I want to talk about are Contour Fashion Innovation, Textile Design Technology and Innovation, which is an MSc, and Fashion and Textiles Masters. And I think the thing that I want to say is to consider why you're doing the MA and where you want your skills to lead you to. So, for instance, I think Graham's absolutely right in saying you can create the masters to answer your thoughts on where you want to end up. So you can do that by choosing which electives you take. But I think it's also very important to think about what each program gives you. And I don't think people realize that we do such specialisms and such a diverse programs within our school. Our latest masters is Contour Fashion Innovation. We are leaders in this field. We are renowned for our contour program. We have links with industry. It's a very successful program, but one of the questions that people ask is, how can I study if I've done a fashion degree, for instance? And this is the purpose of this program. So you do not have to have a background in contour. You can have a background in fashion or a background in pattern cutting or certain specific fashion and textile skills, and this will enable you to cross the divide and come into this specialist area. I think it's particularly pertinent at the moment because I think as there has been a lot of move to online working, I think there's a casualization of clothes. I think there's a lot of interest in how that will affect the fashion industry. And I think one of the things that we do particularly well in contour is learn how to deal with stretch fabrics. So it encompasses all those areas. And again, you have all the choice of electives. So you can be more entrepreneurial, more business minded, or more practice minded. It is a practice-based MA. The next project is Textile Design Technology and Innovation. I'm just going to read people who've been on this course, and I know that Laura will be able to talk more about this because she actually came from architecture, But we have had a textile engineer who's using lasers to adjust the dyeing process, a mechanical design engineer looking at the performance of lightweight synthetic motorcycle clothing, contour design graduate developing clothing for amputees. You can see that it is very much taking your textile and fashion knowledge, or even your construction knowledge, or the application of product development from other disciplines, and bringing that into the textile design technology and innovation process. And again, I think it's an area where people don't realize just how many areas of our lives textile touches, and that the textile technology and innovation process that's going on from sportswear to car to building is extremely exciting, especially in medical products as well. Again, it is practice-based, it is research-based, it's about developing products, and I think Laura will be able to give you more of an insight. And finally, we have Fashion and Textiles Masters, which is the traditional Fashion and Textiles Masters that we know and love. It's practice-based, and it is much more about developing your own design identity. I think that's the best way to describe it. Practice-based, design-led, very much for creatives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Buddy. So don't forget that if you've got a question for us, please do leave one in the comment and we'll do our best to answer you. Now, I'm really interested to hear more about the transition from undergraduate level study to postgraduate level study, and would a student be expected to study the same subject at master's level as they did at undergraduate level, or it sounds like there are other options available to them? I don't know if we want to go to Laura to talk more about her experience and her background coming from architecture, and then Marco and hear about his background as an undergraduate as well. So over to you first, Laura.
Yeah, so I come from an architecture background. It's a bit unusual, but I got into very much why textiles are being used in architecture, and the main driver for that was the technology. So that was the main reason for me choosing this course, to expand my research and knowledge on that, really. And the course has offered so many opportunities to explore different technologies that are being implemented to use in architecture textiles. And you don't have a background in per se textile or innovation or anything, but an understanding would help. So it's, yeah, as long as you know your research and you know where you want to go with it and kind of explore the areas, it's been a really good transition for me.
That's great to hear. And what about yourself, Marco? What did you do at undergraduate level?
So I studied at Brunel before, which is probably quite a different uni to DMU, and I studied industrial design and technology. So it's very much product based. So a lot of product design stuff, very hands-on, very workshopy kind of stuff. Obviously did that for 3 years, and then jump into design management and entrepreneurship now. It's quite a big jump, I'd say, because there's a lot of different content, and it's almost completely different to what I was doing because it was more practical, and now it's more theoretical and applying what you've learned as a foundation in your undergrad and using this to provide yourselves with more opportunities and how you can harness your practical skills with more sort of theory-based sort of like studies. But definitely I think that if you're studying from, you know, any kind of different background to which your course, which you're looking to do, maybe don't be afraid at all. Don't think twice about it. Sometimes just look at the criteria for the course, look at DMU and their values and whatnot, what you think you like about them, have a chat with the course leader, and I'm sure you can take it from there. But do not feel daunted at all. You can come from any kind of background and you can do any course you'd like. Hence why I did product design and now design management, which is at the time quite seemingly out of my depth. So it will be fine, but we can talk about that more soon.
Fabulous, thank you. I don't know if Buddy or Graham had anything that they wanted to comment on, that the transition from undergraduate to postgraduate study.
Yeah, I'll take that one up, and I'll pass to Buddy in just to come up with particularly the additional information in terms of looking at textiles and contour fashion. But I think, as Marco says, it's the key thing is deciding what you want to do and where you want to go with it. And postgraduate study is a unique opportunity. You're doing something different. You're studying at a higher level. You're doing more in-depth research, as Laura was saying. You're doing more analysis. And I guess the key point for us is the level of critical evaluation. And many students from different parts of the world come from different teaching and learning and teaching backgrounds. We often talk about didactic forms of teaching, where it's very much more formal and the teachers are teaching you how you put a project together, that kind of thing. At postgrad, you are given much more license and a lot more freedom to actually take the initiative. And particularly when you come to your final project, which the current students are just starting on at the moment, that's when the relationship between the lecturers and the teachers changes completely, from being much more formal and structured through to actually becoming more of a supervisor and an advisor, because the postgraduate students have to take ownership. They have to take responsibility of those final projects. And the final projects on any postgraduate program are basically worth a third of the whole course. It's 60 credits. So that equates to a minimum of about 600 hours worth of study. But you have to choose a project that you're passionate about, something you feel strongly about, something where you want to add new knowledge to what has been done in that area before. And I think that's quite exciting. But as Marco and Laura were saying, it's quite challenging as well, because suddenly you're going from this position of being somebody who takes on board what's being taught and learning these new skills, to suddenly somebody who's actually adding new knowledge based on their research, based on their analysis, based on their critical evaluation. And that's quite scary. You read all these wonderful journal articles and books by experts, and if you're going, hang on, how do I do that? How do I compete with these guys? That's the whole point of postgraduate study. You have made a huge step from being a graduate coming off an undergraduate program to working at a postgraduate level. The next stop after that, if you want to stay in academia, is PhD research, which is up at another level again. So you've got to understand that postgraduate taught programs sit between undergraduate and postgraduate research PhD level. So it is a very big step forward in terms of researching and what you're trying to do. And there's a lot of team collaboration. You're working with students in group projects, but you're doing a lot of this on your own. So it can be quite a lonely experience, particularly when you're working on that final project. But as most postgraduate taught students will tell you, it's a 3-month period where that project's going on. When you go on to a PhD, it becomes 3 to 4 years. So you can see why that program becomes a transition point. Now, I talked about continuing professional development earlier. Not everybody that does a postgraduate taught course will go on to do a PhD, but they'll go back into industry, or in some cases go into industry for the first time, bringing a new skill set, new knowledge, and that project becomes very important, because that becomes part of your portfolio. The reason why you're going to get this job above somebody who's just come off an undergraduate program, because you've developed this new level of knowledge, new level of skills, and you've developed this analysis and this critical evaluation that's so important. And you can use postgraduate study in many different forms. Yes, you may have done specific specialist courses and learn new technical skills, but actually you can apply those in different areas. And I think perhaps you will have seen with the discussions that have been going on with COVID-19 coronavirus, the importance of science and mathematics and modeling. It happens with design as well. Design thinking, design management are very much part of what we do and what people need in the employment fields that we're going into. So postgraduate taught programs, to sum up, I think really develop this continuing professional development, but they also develop these specialist skills that you can apply in different areas. So I think it's really important to work out what you want to do at the end of the program. Don't just join a program because you like the name of it. Don't just join a program because you like the subject. Work out what you're going to do at the end of that, where you're going to go, where you see your career going. A lot of people use postgraduate studies to actually change career direction, and I think that's incredibly important as well. So think about what your ambitions are, where you want to go. Now is a really good time to do postgraduate study. I think in the current environment, a lot of people are not sure what they want to do, where they want to go. Statistically, if you've got a postgraduate program, it automatically makes you more attractive to employers, but also it probably means you're going to get a higher starting salary as well. That may change in the current economic environment, because I think people are going to be looking to save costs, and it obviously depends where you work. If you work in the London area, people obviously look at London weighting and those kind of areas. But because of what's happened, connectivity and online delivery of programs, people can work from home much more than they did in the past. So actually, geographical location doesn't have the importance that it had in the past. So I think those are all things to think about. So I'm going to hand over to Buddy now, and I think she's going to talk a little bit more about the 3 programs that she's in charge of.
Well, thanks, Graham. I was thinking back to when we were preparing for this streaming session, and the discussion that we had about how both you and I had done our MAs as mature students. And I started looking at the formal way we sort of describe the MA to students, and it says that the first term is the exploration of the subject, the next term is consolidation and development, and the third term is resolution. And I think all 4 of us, Laura, Marco, Graham and me, all started laughing and said the first term you sort of think, what am I doing? Because you move from the skills based of undergraduate to setting your own brief and parameters and exploring the subject, and then you spend the second term thinking, oh, I've hoped I've chosen the right thing, and then you spend the third term thinking, well, I'd better do it now. And actually the phrase that is used to describe all this is interdependence and persistence. And what I think is funny about that is at the end you just look back and think, that was amazing. And now, even so many decades on, I think I couldn't do what I do now without having had that training on a master's program, because as a designer you have to set your own parameters or sort out your own parameters from the brief. You are being asked to design and you are being paid for that amazing skill because the company doesn't know how to do it themselves. So you're not being asked to do something that's been done before. You are being asked to set those new ideas. I think that's the purpose of the masters, is it makes you an independent problem solver, strategic, with initiative and the ability to know where to ask the questions. You don't have to know it all, but you do have to know where to ask and what to ask, and that's really what the masters gives you. I think the transferable skills therefore are amazing, and my advice would be, do absolutely what you love because you're immersed in it. I think we're very lucky at DMU because we have very much a community of postgrad students, which isn't always the case. You have your own area, you have your own environment, and I think Laura and Marco can talk a little bit more about that. But I also think it's a case of developing your practice. So you're not making, it's not necessarily a final collection as such as you would expect in undergraduate. It is perhaps taking an aspect that you didn't fully investigate because of the limitations of the project brief or the length of the project brief. Quite often project briefs are about 10 weeks long and you don't have time to really investigate things. And that's what I would think about is there an aspect, a slightly different aspect that you want to learn? So could you take a sidestep into one of our other related but a different subject area to augment your skills? Think about how you want to perhaps develop your business skills or your entrepreneurial skills, or indeed your digital skills, and think about what that will give you at the end. Most of all, I would say make sure you enjoy it, because it's an in-depth study, and at the end you will look back and go, that was amazing, how did I do that? Interdependence and persistence, definitely what's needed, but whole lot of satisfaction. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Buddy. I think it's really interesting to hear and important to hear about the value in studying at postgraduate level.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go back to and hear from the students about how they've been able to tailor the course to their own specific interests because of the optional modules that are available. I don't know if Laura, could you talk about how you've been able to tailor the course?
Yeah, so it's been quite an easy thing to tailor, really, because the briefs are quite broad in the sense of what you want to do. So I know research methods, you kind of just get given a set brief on what you want to research and how to analyse, but you can look into any different area. And it's the same with business studies, the selective modules. It's all about taking new companies. We can look at companies that you're interested in working for, or you can look at companies that are specialised in your area and look at how they work and operate as a business module. So tailoring it is not actually too difficult at all to what your interests are.
Okay, fabulous. That's really great to hear. And Marco, has that been a similar experience for yourself as well?
Yeah, I think just sort of extending from what Laura said, I think that obviously when you start the course, you do have your core modules. You do have some elective modules. Depending on what course you do have, I think, between 2 to 4 to choose from. So you may do like 3 core modules, and then you have maybe 1 elective. Maybe you do two core modules, and you have another 2 electives. So I think every term you can definitely tailor what you'd like your experience to be like, according to the elective modules that you choose. So for me personally, on design management and entrepreneurship, having the elective modules really allowed me to tailor my experience and what I wanted to get out from the course based on what I was interested in doing after uni. So I'm really interested in user experience design. I'm really hot on user research. I love researching, and I'd like to go into definitely something like user experience or user researching after uni. So the ability to have core modules with other courses, like Laura said, research methods is a core module that we all do. Being able to share that is quite nice, but then also being able to do your elective modules is also quite nice because you can personalize your experience to whatever you'd like to do. So I managed to do that so far. Obviously, the course is still going on. There are no more elective modules. Like Graham said, we are going into the dissertation period now. But then again, you can still personalize your experience based on your dissertation. And I think that there's so much opportunity for personalization, but also integrating with other people on the core modules. There's a perfect balance. So I'd say there's a perfect balance between gaining the same experience and skills as everyone else, and also tailoring your experience to what you'd like to do as well. So.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really great to hear. And I think what I'd like to discuss, and I'm sure anybody watching would be interested to hear about this as well, is what the learning experience might be like for students that would be starting in September this year. As perhaps Buddy and Graham could talk a little bit about that, and then perhaps we can go over to Laura and Marco to talk about what their experience have been of online learning so far. So Buddy or Graham, are you okay to tell us a bit about what the students can expect starting in September?
I can start. Yeah.
Thanks, Buddy.
So it's been really interesting for us, and in fact, I'm currently taking a postgrad course to enhance my skills on online learning, because we've sort of all thought, how do we do a practical course and support the students? And actually, it's been a very, very positive experience for us all. I think we've been surprised, and I think it's also been very good because I think in this global environment, it has meant that the students are becoming more prepared for sending their work digitally and being able to combine both their practical skills, but also to think about how do they depict and convey and communicate their practical skills digitally online, because quite often a designer has to submit a digital portfolio. So we've done a lot of discussion about that. We will be supporting all the practical skills that are needed to be learned, but I think it will make us very efficient and in some ways even more accessible to be able to also provide. We've got all the support to be able to do online tutorials. I think it makes us very flexible in when we can do that. But we will also be timetabling regular slots so that students have scaffolding, they have a structure to the week, we can support that. And I think it has meant that when we are sending out our briefs, it gives us much more flexibility to go, have you seen this link? Have you thought of this TED talk that makes you think in a certain way? Have you looked at this designer's work? I certainly find that it's actually opened up a whole new world as opposed to restrict what we can do. So for me personally, it's been a very, very interesting change, and I think has provided us with great opportunities to think how we're going to build on that for the students. I'd be really interested in hearing what the students say as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Buddy. Graham, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that before we
Yeah,
talk?
I mean, you were talking about what are we going to be doing from September. I think we'll be doing very much what we're doing at the moment, which is using, as I said earlier, the Blackboard virtual learning environment and Blackboard Collaborate, and we'll be using technology to supplement the face-to-face contact that may well be dictated to us by what the government allow us to do in terms of teaching. Certainly, there will be no big lecture theatre sessions. They will all be delivered online through Blackboard Collaborate, but there will be live question and answer sessions. And again, I think Laura and Mark can tell you a bit more about what that's like, because they've been involved in doing those kind of things. But most of the content will be discussed within that live online forum. What we're hoping to do, but we're still waiting for guidance on that, is to run small tutorial sessions, individual tutorial sessions. Now we can do that online, but actually we would prefer to do that within working spaces within the actual Faculty of Arts, Design and Humanities. There's still a lot of discussion going on, as our audience will be aware this morning, that we are very much following what the government advice is, who are taking advice from the scientists. So we're moving into a phase where there is more of freedom to do the more traditional activities that we have done in the past. But I think, like schools, we are still finding our way as we go through this particular situation. But come September, we're hoping that in addition to all the online teaching and learning that we do at the moment, there will be some ability to do face-to-face contact. Now, I think, as Buddy was saying, that's particularly important with design practice courses, because people are going to want to be able to use workshops and use some of the technology that's available. And I think the most important thing is to keep communicating with the university to find out what is happening and when it's happening. But certainly, as the situation becomes more clear to us, we will be able to do more of the traditional kind of activities that we've done in the past. But certainly I've been really pleased by the way that the online lecture systems work. The material is recorded, and the students can then ask questions about it in a live question and answer session. It's been great fun doing that, actually, because certainly in one of my modules, we had people spread across so many different time zones, and it was really good to talk to them, find out what's going on in their countries, and hopefully bring that into the way that we're teaching. One of the modules I run, which is just finishing off at the moment, is business planning for the creative entrepreneur, and that's been really good because the students come from different programs. In fact, we have students outside our own school as well on that one, and hearing the business ideas, applying principles from what they've learned in their design practice and their other practice has been really interesting. And as I say, we've been talking across so many different time zones. We've had students from Thailand, from Korea, from India, and Malaysia. So it's been a really good experience for me actually talking to people. The thing we have to remember, of course, is they're all on different time zones, so we have to timetable the slots so it coincides with everybody. But it's been really interesting, and I think we've learned an awful lot in the time that we've been doing this, which was effectively from the 23rd of March. But I'd be interested to hear what Laura and Marco think about it, because they've been actually involved in these sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we go over to Laura? Do you want to tell us a bit about your experiences and how you've had to adapt to learning online?
Yeah, so in terms of DMU, actually, we're really quick off the ground and getting everything set up on Blackboard, and it was amazing. The virtual online system on Blackboard worked really well, but there were a few challenges. I know time management was a big one for me, because I could get up, go to uni, know what time it is without even looking at the clock, and come home. But working from home, I kind of just, all the hours just merge into one, and I don't know how long I've spent working on an actual project. So I think the biggest thing for me is kind of laying out my time exactly like I would at uni day and sticking to it at home. I'm really planning my time carefully at home, making sure I don't underdo work or overdo work, and give myself a break from time to time. But also building on what Buddy said is online virtual blogs and things. So we do a lot of projects where we gather a lot of information, it's a lot of research, and it's kind of presenting that research. The biggest thing for me is creating a blog where I can present all my work, and it's almost created like a digital portfolio for me as well. And it's actually, when I've been applying for jobs this week, it's actually been so beneficial to send my blog link off. And it's just been really quick and easy just to show what kind of areas I'm interested in. And it's also, you know, it's really good for the companies to see, because there are quite a few companies that I'm looking for, asking for portfolios. So having that digital background is really helpful. Also, I say organisation as well on your computer and having separate folders, because there is a lot. You have 3 or 4 modules going on at the same time, and you can save presentations off Blackboard and kind of have them on your screen at the same time, but making sure you're quite organised with it, because you have so much information coming in for the tutors. It's kind of just being organised, really. It's been the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah, there are plenty of challenges, as you said. And Marco, have you found that you've had similar challenges to Laura?
I would say similar in a sense about, you know, time management and making sure that you have time for yourself. I think working from home sometimes, in the environment that we are, can be really, really hard to sort of segregate time for yourself, time for certain tasks before they sort of merge into one. So I think knowing that you have a plan of action and to stick by a sort of a strict schedule, like Laura said, I think is really good. If you can do that, fantastic. If you can't, do it. But I would definitely say that's the biggest challenge, in a sort of broader spectrum. But for me personally, I found it quite difficult not being able to have that tangible approach to learning, not being able to see the lecturer, speak to my colleagues, ask questions, and sort of gain more insight from people in a more live sense. Although it's really good and it's very innovative that we can, you know, collaborate, communicate, and work alongside each other. And like Laura said, DMU's done a really good job in bouncing back off, in relation to coronavirus. So I think that's really good the way they've done it. But I guess it depends on you as an individual. For me, I found it slightly more harder to adapt, but nevertheless, we have to adapt, don't we? So in these kind of times, it's fight or flight. So if you didn't adapt and you didn't have a schedule and you didn't want to adapt to this digital time, then you're a bit of a fool, to be honest. So I think, like Laura said, like dipping inside the digital sense of learning really does help you with your CV, your portfolio, building up a digital portfolio of work to show employers, I think is amazing. So it's kind of forcing you to do what you already need to do or leading to in the future. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think there's an interesting point there as well about the relationships you've maintained with your tutors. Do you feel like you've still been able to have that connection with your tutors, even though it is online?
Do you know what? I think we've done the best job that we can do with having a good relationship with our tutors without actually seeing them or being near them in a more physical sense. Obviously, there are limitations, and you have to take those limitations with a stride, I think. Not being able to maybe have an instant reply to queries that you have because they're not physically there is like an unspoken barrier that you need to just sort of get over with and understand that there are email replies from other people that they may be needing to get back to. There may be other things going on. So in a more practical sense, you can just go to your tutor, go to your lecturer, go to whoever and ask that question. But the limitation of that is that you don't get that instant reply, but it is still really high quality. It is still, you know, having that sort of caring approach to whatever your question is, nurturing your needs as well.
Thank you very much, Marco. Buddy, was there anything that you wanted to comment on there as well?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm taking notes of what Marco's saying so that I can improve my practice. But I just wanted to make 2 points. The first is, I think you're making both Laura and Marco have made really important points. And actually, I think this is an example of how it will enhance our students' skills, because as we concentrate in practical courses on the practical aspects, you've also got to make sure that your students understand email etiquette, folders, as you've said, you know, organizing yourself on a computer, managing your time. And actually, I think this will enhance the students' skills for being ready to go into the workplace. The other thing I just wanted to add that Graham touched on is, of course, the other huge advantage of doing a master's is it is such an international community. And I know I was talking to Marco about my son doing an MA, and that's also one of the things that he has said is, you know, you're sitting down discussing an issue, but the approach of how somebody from China or somebody from Iran or how somebody from Europe may approach it can be completely different to the view that you have. And as we are designers and competing on a, you know, in a global world, I mean, you know, designers trained in Britain can be found in every design room across the world. I think it's really important to understand that that's perhaps not a skill that you would read about in the curriculum, but I think it's one of the most valid reasons for doing an MA. But it is that mind expansion. It is certainly one of the most rewarding things I've done. I hope you two feel the same.
No, definitely. I think the whole international aspect, like you said, Buddy, about reacting to people's questions in different manners because of their cultural differences and how we all see things, I think is absolutely amazing. And I think the kind of ethos that I plug myself into is that if you truly like to innovate, to truly have inclusive experiences, if you truly like to make design for all, having and working with people of different cultures, of different ages, of different sexes, of different, everything, I think is the only and probably the best way to tackle lots of situations, specifically regarding design briefs and design projects, and definitely in industry as well. And I think that it's just invaluable, completely invaluable.
And one of the best examples I remember, I was talking to somebody who was a ceramics designer, and she said that she'd wanted to broaden her experience. And she just gave such a funny example. And she said, I looked at my family meal and I make a big lasagna and we sit down. And she said, and then I was talking to my friend who is Korean, and she said, oh no, we have lots of small dishes. So if I make a big dish and try to sell it in a different country where they eat in a different way, she said, my products will, I might never know why they're not selling. They might go, I love that, but it's just too big for my needs. I thought that was an absolutely perfect example of how the whole design ethos is wound in with a cultural understanding and that sort of global intelligence that you're talking about, Marco. And of course, that's your network for your future design, where you think, oh, hang on a second, I studied with somebody in that area. So all sorts of advantages that you just cannot list in the prospectus.
Yeah, it's all part of the learning experience, isn't it? And also we're talking about the international experience of students and also staff. And I was wondering if we could talk a bit about the expertise that staff have and the professional experience that they have, and they can bring those insights into their teaching. I don't know if Graham, would you be able to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I just wanted to, before I do that, I'll pick up on one point that Marco was saying in terms of one of the things that's missing is the immediacy of dropping by the office, and that's certainly one of the things that we miss, particularly at the moment, is not having that ability to be around. I go and wander through the postgraduate centre and check up on the guys and make sure they're all right. And I think that's one thing that we have not been able to replace at the moment. But I think Marco made a very good point about, being able to say to a tutor, can we have a chat? We can do all of that. So it is, as both Laura and Marco said, it's about time management now. And I think the key thing is that's a skill you need to learn, because I suspect this is the way, particularly in the design industry, we are going to be working in the future. I mean, I had a very interesting conversation with my wife this morning about the future of retail. We know that people are using the online purchasing systems, using the web to actually source things, to use social media to communicate. This is the way we're going to work in the future. Now, we hope we'll be able to go back to more traditional ways of doing it, so that my colleagues and myself can be around in the studio area. But it is this time management and actually planning ahead how you want to do things, which I think is an incredibly important skill. And that's the way people, particularly in the design industry, are going to be working. You're going to see remote working all the way through the design industry now. It was there before, but now they're going to do it even more. So to come back to the original point that Charlotte was making in terms of expertise, I'm incredibly lucky to work with such a talented group of colleagues. I mean, I was saying to my head of school, my boss, the other day, I enjoy working with such talented people because they've got so many different ranges of experience. You talk to Buddy, she'll tell you about some of her industry experience. One of my team members, Alice, that both Laura and Marco know, she's been finishing off her PhD. When she's not teaching, she's running her own design company. And working with big blue chip clients, doing graphic design, designing ebooks, designing promotional materials. I'm even going to wave a mug at you there. That's her design work that she did as a favour to me for my sailing club that I'm a member of. You know, Zakira runs a consultancy company with her husband. You know, she specialises in service design, but also managing business web presence. You know, I've got other colleagues like Robert Chen, who did his PhD in orthopedic footwear design. My colleague Emily Baines, you know, a specialist knowledge in marketing, but she also has this great wealth of knowledge and experience publishing in, you know, the history of textiles, textile design, retail design. I've got other colleagues like Nikki Harding, who's a museum and exhibition designer by background, worked for Haley Sharp Design for many years. Alex Stothard, who runs design for retail, worked as a retail designer for Sheridan Co., one of the big local retail design companies. Interestingly enough, Leicester and Leicestershire, and to some extent Rutland, one of the biggest centres for retail design outside London. So it's a really big traditional area. Leicester itself has this huge history of textiles, footwear design, retail design, and a lot of my colleagues have worked in those industries. I'm very lucky. I mean, one of my students at the moment on the same course as Marco is actually a colleague of mine, Fiona, and she's worked in industry. She's worked with Next, she's worked with M&S. So we're incredibly lucky to have these people. My own background, I'm actually not a designer at all. I started life, I worked in the retail industry in Australia. I then joined the Royal Navy. I did project management. I learned how to do arms control inspections. I did systems analysis and design methods while I was in the Navy, which is how I got into the design management side of things. And then I worked with research projects, working with international researchers in Russia, managing scientific research projects. All of those skills that I learned from being an undergraduate, going through the Royal Navy, doing systems analysis and design methods, I've used in my academic career. So I'm very privileged that I had all that time invested in me by my employer, and they developed me through these CPD courses. But also, I've learned so much working with my colleagues. And I've been Alice's PhD supervisor. She's just waiting for her viva to happen in the next few months. But actually, I've learned so much. I've got another PhD student that the guys both know, Rubab, who's doing some fascinating research looking at how you use social media in the fashion industry. So, and we're also very lucky. I've not even mentioned our textiles engineering and materials research group, headed up by our colleague Professor Jim Shen, doing groundbreaking research in textile chemistry, developing new materials. We also work very closely with our colleagues in the School of Art, Design and Architecture, and they have the design unit where they're doing groundbreaking research looking at innovation. They have a big project with Nottingham Trent University and Brunel, Marco's old university, where they look at impacting business by design. So all of that experience is being brought in to the teaching and learning that happens at postgraduate level. Some of our postgraduate students are already working with those researchers, and you know, we are constantly looking for new opportunities. We've got a very interesting project that's being developed at the moment with a company looking at new technology that measures temperatures in critical situations. You know, there's lots of exciting research going on the whole time, and that comes into the teaching. So you know, I think the expertise that we have in the School of Fashion and Textiles, it never ceases to amaze me every day looking and working with colleagues. Buddy, do you want to come in on that? Because you know a lot more about the fashion textile side of things.
Yeah, just whilst you've been speaking, I've been thinking about my colleagues and thinking, yeah, we kind of take it for granted. I mean, I'm just thinking about my colleague Claire Lepena, who is a renowned researcher in sustainability. So I always go to her if I want advice. I was thinking about colleagues in Contour, where they've come straight from industry. So they're absolutely up to date in the latest methods of both the technical development of the side, but then we also have colleagues who've worked for the big design names in lingerie and have come through the Royal College of Art. So I think very much what De Montfort is about, and has always been from its heritage as Leicester Poly, and as it's moved into becoming this creative university, is that marrying of the two subjects, both the technical expertise, we've got industry standard machinery, industry standard textile testing labs, stuff that, because we are in Leicester and because we have the space, because we have the new building, we can have, whereas a lot of colleges have to sort of really decide which workshops they're going to keep. We've kind of got the whole lot. And the other thing that I think is really good about our new building, the VJ Patel building, is that you get all the creatives together. So actually, you can get inspiration from the other subject areas. And certainly when you see the pre-show and the stuff that students put online, I find, you know, if I'm thinking, how shall I resolve that for that student? There's always someone to ask. Again, my experience is similar to Graham's, and in fact, mine is probably very similar to some of most of the tutors that we have. I did a practical degree, I did textiles, I worked as a designer in the knitting industry for many years, designing for both high-end and high street, you know, which both require very different disciplines. I became design director for a spinning company, the Yarn, not Peloton or anything like that, the Yarn, and I did set up a design unit in Northern Ireland that could do small bespoke products. I have been a buyer at Next, I've been a freelance designer, I've done trend predictions. It's a really, really rich and varied industry that design can take you into. And I think the thing to think about all the time are transferable skills and how you use that. And I think Laura was absolutely right in what she said, is because our minds are buzzing with ideas all the time. Actually, one of the things we all have to learn is how to keep order of those ideas. And I still keep a sort of mad ideas book where I see something and think that's an interesting website and just write it down so that when I'm stuck I can go back to it. But yes, I think similar to Graham, most colleagues have industry experience or freelance design experience, entrepreneurial experience. And certainly what's so interesting is we're now seeing the sort of younger group of lecturers coming through may well have had experience setting up their business online or running it online. So I feel that we have the whole gamut really of experience between us. It amazes me, quite frankly. I hope that's been the experience of our students as well, that if we don't know it ourselves, we go, ooh, you could ask so-and-so.
Yeah, fun.
No, I think there's definitely been.
Go ahead, Marco.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So there's definitely been like a wealth of knowledge pushing through all the lecturers, and I think definitely, like Buddy said, if it's not one, it's the other. There's always someone that knows something about that you'd like to do your dissertation on, or what to do with this live project, or what to do for this group project, or there's always someone that can help you and point you in the right direction. So I wouldn't say that you're without at all with regards to that aspect.
Fantastic, that's great to hear. Buddy, could you talk to us a little bit more about the textiles, knit and contour aspect of the courses and what the opportunities are there?
Yes. So the contour innovation, like I said, is very much, you could come onto that from any of our fashion or textile degrees. And in fact, I think the main criteria for that is that you have some knowledge of pattern cutting, but you will then be supported on specialist machinery with the tutors who have both the technical and the innovation side. And I think the big thing about that really excites me is that the tutors who are currently teaching on the MSc Textile Technology, Design, Technology and Innovation will also have access to the contour innovation students as well, because a really important part that we are seeing, and when we say contour, we're really talking about close-fitting garments. So that could be sportswear, that could be swimwear. And I think especially in sportswear, there is a crossover where we need to make sure that the students can access some of that technical knowledge, as well as if you want to take it more into the design side. So for instance, that whole trend of, you know, you might want to wear your sportswear out and about on the way to doing your sport. How do you make that acceptable? How do you get the design, but how do you keep the performance? We've had amazing projects, which we've now got a medical forum where we're looking at mastectomies. How do we ensure that there are a suitable product for those women? We're looking at I mean, we have a phrase in De Montfort that if you can think it, you can make it. And I think that's probably, in the very short time we have, the best way of summing up what we do. And I think that actually encompasses the fashion and textile suite. We have the equipment, we have the technical expertise, we have the industry links. Go for it. Why wouldn't you? You know,
that's fun. I was just going to say that's fantastic. And what sort of facilities are there available for students to be able to realise their vision?
Everything you want. So we have weave, we have a full weave jacquard, electronic digital weave, we have digital knit, we have shima, we have dubiers, we have domestic machines, we've got a fully equipped print studio, everything from screen printing to digital. I've got a question here. Say, do master students get their own study space? There is a postgraduate room. Yes, there is. But I think it's also important to say a bureau service is offered. So if you decide you want some laser cutting, or if you want some access to some of the other workshops that perhaps would not traditionally be considered as a textile studio, you would be able to request a bureau service for those as well. It is extensive and it is industry standard. And I think the really good thing is we are technicians. So we haven't really talked about them, but our technical instructors are themselves quite often practitioners in their own right or with industry experience. Actually, one thing I haven't mentioned is all the contour machinery. We've invested in the latest equipment to make sure that we can keep up with and experiment with the research that's going on in the industry. And the people who operate, the technical instructors who operate that, are from industry. So we have all the specialist machinery needed to ensure that, you know, seams don't rub in sportswear, that you're getting the right degree of stretch within the fabric. We can test that within our textile testing lab. It's immense. I can't cover it, but the facilities are excellent. I love working.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. And Graham, did you want to mention something about the CAD labs that we have available?
Yeah, I mean, as Buddy said, we've got a postgraduate centre with a studio space, and we've got our own teaching rooms there. But last year we had our CAD lab, which only had 15 spaces, converted to make it a bit bigger. So that's available now. Obviously, there are some social distancing restrictions put on that at the moment, but as I said earlier, hopefully, you know, as we are allowed to do more when the government makes its announcements, we can get back to full capacity at some stage. But you know, the equipment in there is great, the software is up to date, particularly on the MA digital design. We use a lot of the Adobe Creative Suite, but other software packages are available. Our colleagues in interior design and product design have other packages like Cinema 4D and the SolidWorks. I also was going to say that we have very lucky. We've got rapid prototyping facilities as well. We have a water jet cutter, a laser jet cutter, a full metal woodworking, model making workshop. So gradually those spaces will be opened up again. In fact, some of our facilities are being used at the moment to produce personal protective equipment. Our sewing rooms are being used. So our facilities are so good, they're actually being used to produce equipment to help our NHS colleagues in the current situation. So, you know, we've got 3D printers. All of those facilities are available to postgraduate students. The studio space at the moment is great, but it's pretty busy because we've got so many different postgraduate courses. But obviously, as we move to new the restrictions being lifted, those spaces will become available again. So it is, you know, it's a great facility. Before we had our new building, as Buddy was saying, the VJ Patel building, we did have a dedicated postgraduate space area, but it was actually quite limited. And we were very lucky when they put us into floor 2 in the VJ Patel. It's also got a tremendous view over the river, over the canal area. So it's a really, really good studio space. But, you know, keep in touch with us. We'll let you know what's happening in terms of how that's opened up, how that will work. As I say, we've got technical testing labs as well. Again, we're just waiting for guidance on what we can do with those. But hopefully for the new students next year, those facilities will be available. It is a different environment for us at the moment in terms of what's going on. and we're learning a lot. But what we've been really impressed by is the fact that we've been able to do a lot of this material online, and we've been able to do things that we weren't expecting to be able to do online. So, I think the experience is different in terms of what happens. So I think, it's been a very interesting time for us, but we're constantly changing. Okay.
Absolutely. I think I'm conscious that we're coming towards the end of our hour, but I'll try and squeeze in one last question about how students might be able to prepare for their masters over the summer and prepare for the next level of study. I don't know if our students would have anything from their personal experiences that they could comment on here.
Yeah, about preparing to come on the course. Yeah, that's a good idea. So Laura and Marco, have you got any advice for students coming on a postgraduate course? What kind of things they need to do?
Go ahead, Laura.
I guess it's kind of reading around your subject area and getting to the different aspects is the biggest one for me, because I think I came into it a bit blindsided, and I kind of needed to backtrace a step to understand where it was going. So I think more reading preparation and understand kind of exactly which direction you kind of want to go was the biggest thing for me to prepare. I need to do, and then also the business modules. I've always come from a design background. I've never considered business at all. I went to design college, straight into architecture, straight to here. So reading around business and learning the terminology was the biggest thing for me. So kind of just expanding your terminology in business and looking at strategic analysis in business planning was the biggest thing to kind of probably push myself further for getting ready for the masters.
Thanks, Laura. And yourself, Marco, is there anything you wish you'd done or that you did do to prepare over the summer?
No, I think I've done really good in preparing, actually. I think actually I was very prepared. I think that I'd done all of my homework, and I think I made all the right decisions leading up to my masters. Some of them during the masters, debatable. However, I do honestly think that there's no such thing as too much preparation and planning. Getting things done in advance, getting your application in early, speaking with the course leader, asking loads of questions about what you'd like to do afterwards and where you'd like to go. I think, bombard them with emails of questions. There is no silly question, like Graham always says. Ask them anything about the course, where it can possibly lead to. Maybe the course that you're looking at isn't right for you. Speak to the different course leaders that offer different courses and just speak to them about your direction and say you've spoken to so-and-so, and try and get a better picture of where you'd like to go and which course is best for you, liaising with the lecturers. So I would definitely say take the emails of Buddy and Graham and any other course leaders that you're looking to study, and I would definitely say email them, get more insight. I think based on from my experience on undergrad, I never even knew anything about uni, anything about Brunel, anything about design, anything about anything. Well, not about design, but about the course. And it was pretty much just being blindsided into going because of certain pressures. This pressure is in your hands now. You're big and you're grown. You can make your own decisions. Just make sure it's well executed. Make sure you've got the support of your family and friends. Make sure that you do your research and you speak to the correct lecturers that you're looking to study their course for. And yeah, that's probably the best piece of advice that I would say. Get your application in early.
Marco contacted me very early on by email, and then he came up to Montfort. We had a long chat and we constantly talked, and he was very model in everything that he did, because he wanted to make sure he was really well prepared. He did lots of reading. I can tell you he's done even more reading since then, and I know Laura's the same, because I've taught both of them in research methods, so everything he's just said is true.
I wouldn't say that, when it comes to doing the actual masters, that you need to be very diligent in planning, because almost that will come into it, crossing that bridge when you get to it, because you never really know how it's going to be. But planning up until the masters, until you actually start, you can look at all the recommended reading lists that you can get from lecturers if you email them. I'm sure there's no such thing as too much reading in, design thinking, design methodologies, design research. And I would just say, do loads of reading, do loads of research, look at your accommodation, look at where's good for you, manage your finances, try and plug in a few resources here and there to work out, okay, what's feasible, what's not, from a more practical sense of you. But I think that's it.
Yeah, read like there's no tomorrow. That's my advice.
It's such a pleasure to have that time to read. Use it.
So one more quick point is my course is very much technology based, and there's a lot of technology involved in it, and you can take any path you want. And you were quite lucky at the sense at the moment, and the coronavirus going around, they've actually, I know Adobe have given out some free softwares to practice and try. So
they have,
yeah,
finesse the system.
Yeah, look at what technology kind of, especially for me, and I think textiles as well, because you do Madara and lecturer and things. It's kind of look at subscribing to that and just having a practice and getting used to the different technologies that you could advance your masters in for your final major projects, and Photoshop from whatever specialised area you can do, because a lot of them are free at the moment. So just get on there and learn the software or experiment with a few different ones to get ready.
Fantastic. That's some excellent advice and tips. Thank you very much, guys. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you to everyone for joining us. If you would like to ask a question to a current DMU student on the course you're interested in, then please send us an email at adhmarketing@dmu.ac.uk, and we'll do our best to pass your question on to one of our students. I know that Laura and Marco would be happy to speak to you. And if you'd like to find out more about DMU, then please come along to our digital open day on Saturday, the 4th of July, where there'll be a dedicated postgraduate online chat for you to ask any further questions. Thank you to my lovely panel, and thank you to everyone once again for joining us. We hope to see you soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.